Okay, so clearly we have the intake off right now. And why am I doing this? Why is the intake off? So I have a misfire on cylinder 4 right now. And through my diagnoses, I'm pretty sure the cylinder 4 injector is going bad. I'm 22 and they're known for cylinders going bad, the injector's going bad anyways. So I figure like my time is up. Done the high pressure fuel pump already. That's not a one. I run fuel injector cleaner every 10,000 miles. Not every 10,000, every 3 oil changes about. I run the good stuff. I run the gum out with the actual PEA in it, not the watered down sort of intake cleaner. So good intake cleaner, good fuel additive rather. And I still ran into that issue. So the symptom I'm dealing with is I boot the car up in cold start, and on the EK1, I can feel it in the car. I can feel the car go up, 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 up. It's not happy. I can feel it like wobbling. I can see on the EK1, cylinder 4 is counting. It's like cold start, 3 misfires. I mean, that kind of just happens on cold start with DI car, direct injection cars. And then when it settles down, I'll go with the EK1 will read 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It'll just keep going. If I let it sit long enough, it throws PO171, which is a permanent lean code, and it becomes a pain in the butt to clear. If you have an EK1, you can just flash the ECU and that kind of clears it, assuming the problem goes away. Yeah, so if I drive the car, put any load on it, it doesn't do that anymore. And as soon as the car is warm, everything is cool. So I think that's that feels like injectors. I took coil 1 and 4, swapped them, no change, put them back. Took plugs 1 and 4, swapped them, no change, put them back. Actually, no, they're still swapped right now. I'm going to swap plugs anyways because I realized we weren't supposed to gap HKS plugs, so I have new ones coming in, so I'm going to put those in there today anyhow. But yeah, so swap coils, no change. Swap plugs, no change. Took all the gas out of the car to drive it all the way. Put fresh gas in there, put 2 rounds of AMSOIL quick shot to clear out any water or ethanol sort of residue inside the gas tank. Still no change, so it basically feels like injectors. So got the intake off. I took my time. It took about 2 hours, like an hour and a half to do it. It's not really that bad, honestly. And since I'm here, I'm gonna give you some indications about like what I learned if you want to do it yourself. Since I don't want to do this again. I'm gonna have to do it again because I don't have a walnut blaster with me right now, and the intake valves could look better. Actually, let me show you what the intake valves look like. Where is my light? I'll put you down for a moment. Sorry. Okay, so cylinder 1 looks like that. This is with also, right, so I run Berryman CRC or CRC intake cleaner. I ran it every 25,000 miles. Maybe a shorter interval could be better, but that's cylinder 1. That's cylinder 2, it's open right now. Cylinder 3, cylinder 4. It really doesn't want to focus. Camera hates me. There we go. Cylinder 4 has a little blocker plate in there. Not a blocker plate, the tumble plate in there. Because that's what the little metal thingy is. There's a element inside the intake that will spin, and I don't want to tip over the intake right now because I need to vacuum that thing off. But let me just walk you through at least what I did to take the intake off so I can give you ideas. So since I'm doing injectors, I pulled, give me a moment. Okay. My procedure was, since I'm doing injectors, first thing I did, get the car up on stands. I don't want to do injectors hot. So the car's cold. It's been sitting overnight. I have the car on stands in case I wanted to get up underneath the car, based on another dude in the Facebook, Bryce on one of the elantra N groups recommended maybe coming from underneath, maybe could help you a little bit. I didn't end up needing to do that, but I had it up on stands just in case because I didn't want to bobble around the car when the intake was off. So I got the car up on stands. If you have the tools I have, you don't need it on stands, actually. You can just do it with the car sitting. Got the car up on stands, booted the car up. It's been cold overnight. I yanked the fuel pressure. This guy, that's your, because it's fuel pump relay, not relay, fuel pump fuse. Pulled that out, booted the car up, and let it sit for about a minute and a half. Car died, as you would expect, so I turned the fuel pump off because what I wanted to do was to try to pull as much fuel out of this as it possibly could. I wanted to go completely dry as much as it possibly could because I'm going to obviously pull the fuel rail off and I don't want fuel everywhere, ideally. I'm going to still be careful about undoing that in case there's still high pressure fuel in there. You don't want hydraulic injection, that really bad. Yeah, let me tell you about the tools I did. I haven't taken the fuel rail off, but for the fuel rail, I have a AN crow's foot wrench set. So it's like a it kind of goes pinchy like this, but there's an open end. It's a flare nut crow's foot basically. So I have a whole set of those. That would make it easy. Just flip that over, put it over, crank it, and then that just comes right off basically. So make that straightforward. But I'm just saying that since I haven't gotten there yet. Okay, so to take the intake off, things to note. One thing that's going to be annoying is the fact that there are, let's see if I can find one sitting around here. Most of the clips were on the intake. There we go. So there are these little guys. These things suck to deal with. This is a reusable zip tie. So if you're going to do this, I would recommend having a pick. This is really all you need. All you need to do is take this, put it in there, and then wedge it between the zip tie portion here and push this way, and it'll unhook. That's all you need. So I would recommend having a 90-degree pick. Extremely useful for taking off the zip ties without having to cut them, and you don't want to cut them because there's really no place to like hook them otherwise, unless you want to. You don't want to break that. That's a one-time use clip that rams in there. It's a pain in the butt to get out. So I would recommend trying to undo the zip tie if you can. Obviously, you can see I have everything blue masking tape to remind myself, like, hey, plug this back in when I actually go and put the car back together. And let me see. So what you're going to need to take off is, this is obviously coming from your pipe. This is your boost pipe. That is blow-off valve, and that is your map sensor on your cold pipe. That's your boost sensor effectively. It's in there, just in the map sensor. So you need to unplug those. This is your map sensor coming from, not your map sensor. This is the map sensor coming off the intake, so you're gonna need to unplug that. This is the variable charge actuator. It's a little boxy thing that sticks up over here, so you unplug that, that comes off of it. And this is, I believe, this is just cooling. This is one of your coolant temp sensors, and it's on the block, but I just took it out just so I had some room. Pulled all those off. You're going to have a little network over here of plugs that will kind of come up over here, so you're going to need to unplug those. I believe those are your injectors. I could be wrong on that. There's another Delphi plug over here, and there's another, what's it called again? Another plug over there for, I believe, that is your, what do I call this thing again? Electronic throttle. No, electronic throttle is on the, electronic throttle is on, right, that's electronic throttle. Electronic throttle is on this thing. This little trio is what sits down here on this thing, basically. Your ETC, your electronic throttle, which is this connector over there, will sit all the way over there. Your ETC connector, by the way, it's a pinchy. It's pinched this way. It's one on the bottom, one on the top, so you're going to need to come at it from both ends. The other end won't be very obvious, but you can feel it. Like, you pinch it and then it'll come out. This one, you can see, is a little bit weird of a connector. This is the middle one over there, and what happens is this clip is going to be on the bottom side. You need to pull up on this, gently pull up on this little fork thing over there, pull up and over release. If you have an iPhone or any phone that can fit in there, by the way, what I've been doing just to see what the heck is going on in this section, since you're completely blind, you could take the under tray off. What I did with my phone is I just put my phone, put it on super wide angle, turned the flash on, stuck my hand over here and just started taking photos, and that helped a lot about seeing what the heck I was working with. So pull those connectors off. You can see I have left my AC condenser connector still plugged in. That's still there, and I still have my oil pressure sensor, oil temperature sensor, which is this guy right there. He's still plugged in too. I just moved everything else on that was snaked over the intake, pulled that off, put that over basically, and that's really all you need, because this over here underneath, there's a clip attached to the alternator. It's attached to the alternator. That's a bastard. I'm not gonna screw with this. I just left them there, and that worked out. So unplug everything basically. So again, fuel pump's already been run dry. I disconnected the battery too. You can see the battery terminals off. Don't light yourself on fire. Have a fire extinguisher handy if you're doing anything with fuel. Yeah, so unplug everything. Take your intake boot, slide that off. I do not need to take the cold pipe off. What I'm going to do, I just got the intake off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Ziploc bag, put this over it, and then tape that down just so nothing can fly in there. Yeah, so move that out of the way. I didn't need to take it completely off, just move the boot off to the side, basically undo the clamps, shimmy it. So very minimal work. You don't need to be underneath the car. So was it, all connectors are off. That's off, that's off. If you have a catch can, take your catch can off. Obviously you can see I have PCV right here, it's blocked off. If you don't have a catch can, just undo the PCV hose, you yank it off super easy. You're gonna need to unplug your brake booster. This is a pain in the butt because this is a really tight line for some reason. What I ended up doing is I left this here because you can see I moved the clamp, but like it's kind of a pain in the butt to take this off. This is a hard line. What I did, intake side was a little easier to do. Took the same 90-degree pick, snaked up underneath there, rammed it in, and then pulled it off, and that worked. Otherwise, this is really, really stuck on real good, way harder than the PCV ones. So I just kind of left them there, and that's fine, basically. And I should actually cap this off as well. So, check PCV hose or catch can is off. Brake booster is disconnected. You're also gonna need to take your purge valve. This is your canister purge. You need to take that off. I should cap this off too and put that blue tape on now, so remember to hook that back in. Take that, you're gonna need to disconnect that. It's attached to the intake. That is this hose over here, so make sure you take them off. What that does, if you don't know what the heck that does, is you want to tour around the car. So canister purge, what the car will do is your fuel tank pressurizes. That's a return coming from the fuel tank into the intake. All cars have this right now. So that really needs to be connected. Otherwise, when that opens, obviously gas goes in here and that's not good. Also, you would get a check engine light if that wasn't connected, because what the car actually does when it boots up, you'll notice that it obviously holds higher revs and you hear a weird noise coming out of the intake. The reason why is because if you're versed in how evaporative control works in cars, what the car is doing is depends on the car. It's either going to open this or open another control valve back there to check whether anything's blocked. So if this isn't connected when the car boots up, it's going to get real scared. So you need to make sure that's connected. Otherwise, it's going to throw a code. You need to clear it, reflash the car, whatever. So there's that. Obviously, the PCV valve is overpressure as you push more revs. The crankcase pressurizes. You don't want the head to lift, so it will vent through here back into the intake. And then your brake booster comes from here. Your brake booster runs on vacuum. So the intake has vacuum, and it's a vacuum reference, and that's why this is plumbed over here. That's also why your brake pedal feels weird when you boot the car up, because when the car boots up, this will go, I believe, full open or closed, one of the two. The vacuum here will not be normal, which is why your brake booster doesn't feel right until you hear the car settle down in revs. This will establish normal operation, and you get your brake booster back. Yeah. So unplug everything, unplug all the hoses. Now, one thing that becomes really annoying, again, I would recommend also, by the way, if you have access to service manual, I would consider that a prerequisite. Find it somewhere. Find the section I'm taking off the intake and the fuel rail. If you can't do that, I'd be very hesitant to do the solo. I would recommend you take it to a shop. But if you already have read all that and you're just kind of wondering, what am I in for? This is what this video is for, basically. The last two things you're going to need to do, I think the last two things is, so this is a stay on the bottom of the intake. So there are two 12 mils over here, and you're going to need to get at it from the bottom. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So what I did, I'm still here. I'm just grabbing something so I can show you what I ended up doing. That's 10, that proves a point. What really saved the day for me to take off these is this thing. This is a Zyklop super tiny one, and it's hex head, like your normal 1/4 inch drill bits, adapted to 1/4 inch square, the 1/2 inch, so I can put my 10 mil on this thing, and this thing obviously removes. I was able to take my hand, stick it under there, just like that, and get access to it. This is tiny torque spec. I think it's just 20 foot-pounds. It's like 18. It's hand tight, so you don't really need a torque wrench in there. I was able to snake my hand up in there, undo both of those things, and everything worked out. So that's what I think Bryce mentioned getting under the car would be kind of useful for. I have a headlamp on, which is why it's blocking the light because the camera's in the way. Lovely. The other thing is there's this little doohickey here. There are two 10 mils that go here into the intake. So you're going to need to, once again, this was great. So it was sneak in here, get in front of it, and then undo it. and that worked out well. Veloster owners might be molding right now because it's kind of probably a pain in the butt since this is closer on those cars. So undo all that, and then the way the intake works is there are two studs over here. The intake is basically sitting on those. So what I did was undid both of those things. You can probably do it as last, and the first doesn't really matter. But I undid both of those things. You can do them last, doesn't really matter. Undo both of those. It's sitting recessed in the intake, so I used a magnet on a stick, stuck it in there, retrieved it. And then there's going to be 1, 2, 3 bolts. Just 2 on the outside of the intake, basically, and 1 in the middle. And what I did for that, go retrieve my tool. I just need to put it together. You'll see what I mean. I just need to put it together again. Okay. So let's take those out because those guys are recessed into the intake. I made this contraption. This is a 3/8 with a stack of magnets on the end of it. And what I do is I take my 10 mil. I think it's 12 actually. It's 12 mil. And put it on there. And now you have a magnet on the stick with a hex head sitting in front of it. So I did that, stuck it in there, unscrewed it, and then was able to just retrieve it out since it magnetizes. Those are magnetic. Hyundai was nice. Those are magnetic, so you can just pull those straight off basically. Also, keeping track of this. So like intake bracket, intake conductor brackets, intake and nuts are underneath. Those are the nuts. So just keep track of those. And yeah, once all that's done, so these 3 are off. The intake is not going to fall off because it's being hung on these 2 studs. So once you have those off, then you just pull and just navigate it out of this. And that's it. So I'm going to get in there and replace injectors. I have the Sonata. Let me get the part number. If you want all the part numbers, you can. I'm replacing it with these things. This is from Shark Racing. This is a full kit of the Sonata 2 GTA 0 connectors. These are not the OEM connectors for this, injectors for this car. This is the 5% higher flowing one that like N75 6 and everyone else has basically. Shark Racing was kind of neat because they give you the injector and the gasket at the end of it, gasket washer, and the clip as well. So the clip, gasket washer, and the injector, and they also give you bolts for the fuel rail if you want to replace those, as well as in new intake gaskets and throttle body gaskets if you want to use those. So that's a full kit, so I got that from them. It's a good deal actually. So these are going to go in the car. These are not the OEM ones. These should flow a little bit better anyways. Yes, those are going in. Your option if you want to use these, you want to reuse the original. If you want to use the actual original part number, free to do so. Hopefully they made a revision by now that isn't as screwy. That's the 22s. I think the 22s got the bad luck of the draw in manufacturing. 23s and 24s have it better, I think. Yeah. All right, so everything's done. We're taking the intake off. I'm gonna go pull this thing off and get to work on the fuel rail. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tape this off. Remember to tape that off so I remember it. I'm gonna tape off, block plate the intake so nothing gets in there. I'm gonna eat lunch, and then I'm gonna knock out the rest of this. I'm not gonna get on video. I just reversed the process to put everything back there, but I figured I haven't seen a video out there on people taking off the intake, so might as well do that as a courtesy. Yep.